What if the thing you've been afraid of has already been defeated? What if the miracle that you've been waiting for has already happened and fear is the only thing keeping you from walking in it? Here's what I want you to sit with today. The people who declared Jesus guilty, the ones who handed him over to be crucified, were so convinced by his words that they stationed guards at the tomb and sealed it shut. They believed, maybe feared, enough to act. But his own followers, the ones who walked with him and ate with him and heard every promise that he made, they were behind locked doors, afraid. The enemies of Jesus took his words more seriously than the people who loved him. And I have to ask you, are you living afraid? Or are you living in anticipation of what he already said? That question isn't just about the resurrection, friend. It's about your leadership and your calling and your purpose. Hi, I'm Christina Ryan, a faith-based mindset and purpose coach, helping you identify the lies holding you back, replace them with the truth so that you can confidently walk in who God created you to be and who he created you to lead. Today, we're starting something that I've been sitting with for a while. It's a brand new series called Already. And here's what this series is all about. The Already series is for leaders who are capable and called and carrying more than they should have to. It's for leaders who have been performing for a verdict that was settled before they ever stepped into the room. We're not here to do more. We're here to lead from what's already true. Because here's what I know about the leaders watching this. You are capable, you are called, and somewhere along the way, you started leading like you're still waiting for permission that God already gave you. If you stay with me today, you're going to walk away with three things: a fresh understanding of why fear keeps leaders from the miracles already in front of them. A truth about your identity that has nothing to do with what you've won, earned, or even proven. And a question that will change how you lead from this moment forward. Are you ready? Let's go. Now, before we talk about your leadership, your calling, or why fear keeps you stuck, I need to take you back to the tomb. Because what happened outside that tomb on the morning of the resurrection, I believe, is one of the most revealing leadership moments in Scripture. And I think most leaders completely miss it. Friend, here's our first key for today. Leaders who don't believe the word live defensively. Matthew 27 tells us the chief priests and Pharisees went to Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, 'After 3 days, I will rise again.'" They called him a deceiver, and yet they acted on exactly what he said. They stationed guards, they sealed the tomb, they did everything that they could to make sure that the word of God didn't come to pass. And yet, his own disciples were nowhere near that tomb. They were together, doors locked, for fear. John 20:19 says it plainly. They heard the same promises, they had seen the same miracles, and they had sat at the same table. But fear had them paralyzed, while the resurrection was already underway. And here's what this means for your leadership. When you don't fully believe what God said about you, you lead defensively. You protect your position instead of developing your people. You manage outcomes instead of releasing the vision. You stay small so that you don't have the chance to fail big. You see, defensive leadership isn't weak leadership. It's often the most competent leadership in the room, but it's leading from fear, not from what God already said. Can I tell you something? The enemy has always known what God said about you more than you have. He's not guarding a lie. He's guarding what he knows is true. That if you ever fully believe what God said, then everything changes about how you lead and live. The question isn't whether the word is true. The question is who's acting on it. So if the enemies of Jesus believed his words enough to guard the tomb, what does that say about us? When we lead like his promises don't apply to us. When we shrink back, when we question the calling, when we ask, why me? Who am I to lead this? Why would anyone choose to follow me? Well, here's what I've learned, and this one is personal. The real battle isn't in the boardroom. It's not in the budget meeting. It's not in the performance review. It's not on a stage. It's not on a field. It's the judges, the people that we let live inside our own heads. And here's the second key. Leaders who perform for approval lead from fear, not from purpose. I want to take you somewhere personal for a minute. I was 17 years old and standing on a stage competing for Miss Illinois Teen USA. I had made it to the top 5, and I can still remember standing there watching those judges look back and forth and back and forth between us. It felt like an eternity. And finally, they made their choice, and I was first runner-up. They chose her, not me. And for a girl who had already spent years tying her worth to her performance and her accomplishments, what other people thought of me, well, that moment didn't just sting. It confirmed the lie. Not chosen, not enough, and not worthy. I spent the majority of my life after that stage searching for worth in the opinions of others. Validation, acceptance, approval, looking for judges to finally look my way and say, you're the one. And I carried that into my leadership. Every room that I walked into, well, I was performing, not leading, performing. Trying to prove that I belonged, trying to make sure that no one regretted choosing me, trying to be enough before anyone had the chance to decide that maybe I wasn't. Friend, that's not purpose-driven leadership, that's survival. But here's what I didn't know at 17 and what took me years to understand. There was someone in that audience who wasn't waiting for the results. You see, he was already standing, already cheering, not because of how I performed, but because of who I am to him. It wasn't until years later that God took me back to that moment. And when he did, he didn't change the outcome. He changed what I saw. He showed me that he was there, standing, And he said, you've already won. You're already chosen. You didn't fail, and you can't please people and me. And then he opened my eyes to Galatians 1:10. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. The judges, they were looking back and forth. But God, he was already standing. Friend, you were never meant to lead from someone else's verdict. You were already chosen before you ever walked into that room. Maybe you heard yourself in that story. Maybe your stage wasn't a pageant. Maybe it was the first time you took on a leadership role and wondered if everyone could tell you didn't fully believe that you belonged there. Maybe it was the boardroom, the field, the ministry, the team meeting where you said the right things but felt the familiar weight underneath. What if they find out I'm not as confident as I look? And you've been leading from behind that locked door ever since. Here's what I need you to know. The disciples, they didn't stay behind the locked door, and neither do you have to. So here's our third key. Leaders who walk in identity lead from overflow. Mary Magdalene didn't stay at the tomb weeping because Jesus told her to. Heck, the angel was there and he said, he is not here. He has risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Come and see. Not stay here and protect yourself. Not wait until you feel qualified. Not go back and figure out if you're ready for this calling. Come and see. And when Mary encountered Jesus, everything shifted. She went from weeping outside a tomb to running to tell the disciples. It was the same woman, the same mourning, but a completely different posture. And that's what leading from identity does. It doesn't eliminate the uncertainty, but it reorients your leadership within it. Leaders who perform for approval are always running low because approval has to be re-earned every single day. But leaders who walk in identity, who know who they are before they ever walk into the room, they lead from overflow. Not because everything is going perfectly and not because they have all the answers, but because their worth, it isn't on the table. Anticipation isn't the absence of fear. Anticipation is choosing what to believe over what the circumstances are showing you. So I got to ask you, what are you anticipating as a leader? Are you standing guard over a lie, working overtime to make sure the truth of who God says you are doesn't break through into how you lead? Or are you running toward the empty tomb, ready to lead from everything he already prepared for you? Friend, our significance is in his sacrifice. Our worth is in his word, and our value is in his victory. And your purpose as a leader, it didn't begin with your gifts or your title or your strategy. It began with a grave that couldn't hold him. I want to give you a moment right here. Think about the area of your leadership where fear has had you locked behind a door. Maybe it's a decision that you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a conversation you keep postponing, or maybe it's a calling that you've been circling because you're not sure that you're the one for it. Let me ask you this. Where in your leadership are you performing instead of leading from who God says you are? Will you sit with that? And then this one. What would you do differently as a leader this week, this weekend, if you truly believed that God was already standing, not waiting for your performance, but cheering because of who you are to Him? Don't rush past that question. Bring it into your leadership and let it do its work. The tomb couldn't hold Him. And the lie that says you're not enough, you're not qualified, not worthy, not the right person to lead this, it can't hold you either. Not because you finally figured it out, and not because you performed well enough, but because He took every false verdict with Him to the grave and defeated it when He rose. You are not the leader waiting for the judges to decide, and you are not the disciple behind a locked door. You are a leader whose Father was standing in the back of every room that you thought you lost in, cheering. Not for your performance, for you. You're already chosen. Lead like it. If this resonated with you today, I would love to hear from you. Drop the word already in the comments and tell me what locked door you are ready to walk away from as a leader. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they are already chosen, will you share this video with them today? Next week, we are going into episode 2 of the Already series, Already Worthy, where we're going to talk about what it actually costs to lead from a place of striving and what becomes possible when you finally stop. You don't want to miss it. So make sure you're subscribed, and then you won't miss a single episode. Friend, I'll see you next week.